Hello everyone, Inhuman Form here. Today, we're going to talk about something special.
America, where a free people can build a great cathedral of the spirit, each of us raising it day by day.
The United States is romanticized in many ways. We can drive to McDonald's in a Hummer. We lead the world in the field of medical research, and most things are priced in US dollars by default. People from everywhere around the world dream of obtaining a visa just for the opportunity to come to America. But does this mean the United States is inherently special? And should we get to dictate the affairs of the rest of the world? Well, my beloved viewers, this brings us to our topic today, my favorite topic, American exceptionalism. To be exceptional, something must be both superior and unique. People that believe America is exceptional argue that the values, the political system, and the history of the United States is unique in human history.
We are the people of America, a mixture of the people of the world.
Although the concept of American exceptionalism is fairly all-encompassing, it tends to focus on the country's origins, development, and current socioeconomic conditions. The story goes that the United States is exceptional because it was built from the ground up by people who cared about liberty and created a country based on prioritizing personal and political freedoms.
Through their dedication to freedom and liberty, they helped mold and maintain a way of life that remains today the living symbol of man's most cherished ideals.
This was seen as a break from the corrupt ways of Europe and intervention from the government on the other side of the Atlantic. And here we arrive at one of the first lies of American exceptionalism, the core values the country was founded on. Hillary Clinton was quoted in 2016 saying that America is indispensable and exceptional because of its values. Values such as freedom, equality, and individual responsibility.
In the United States, name any point of view and somebody will have it and say it. At least here they're free to say it, and I'm free to disagree. I like that freedom, and all the others. If that makes me patriotic, okay, I'm patriotic. So sue me.
In reality, the Constitution prioritized order above freedom, and anyone who was black, indigenous, or a woman was denied their rights, marginalized, and oppressed.
You're right, friend. When you say American, you're talking about all kinds of people from all over the earth. We live under one flag, but we have the right to see things and express ideas, each in our own way. That's why we set it up.
The Founding Fathers believed free society should be free from government intrusion. Freedom from government entailed the empowerment of a narrow demographic, typically white men who owned property. As we look further into the evidence, the truth about America and its freedom becomes even more questionable. Its press freedom ranks 49th in the world, which isn't exactly a ranking to boast about. In economic freedom, the country only ranks 25th overall among the Global Economic Freedom Index, with much of the country's wealth concentrated at the top. The United States holds 5% of the world's population in totality, but has the highest number of incarcerated individuals worldwide, with almost 2.1 million people in prison.
That's why we set it up.
This is without even mentioning the horrors of slave ownership and the fact that the United States was one of the last countries in the world to abolish slavery. But these matters are only inside the United States, among our own population, which is why it's important that we take into account the pain inflicted on other parts of the world as well.
Patriotism is doing what your government tells you to do and feeling good about it. I have been in 44 different countries. There's nothing like America.
From 1970 to 2008 and beyond, the United States has plagued much of the world with the neoliberal doctrine, where different forms of capitalist domination come into focus and corporations dominate the population. This is often done by seizing the resources of developing nations, leaving them dispossessed, all in the name of generating wealth. How does one exert control over the resources of another country? Through the use of military intervention and varying kinds of financial instruments, of course. Nothing new.
Why should he be happy? His country wants him to fight. Fight for big words like democracy, freedom, liberty. Hell, he doesn't even know what they mean.
US military expenditures are roughly the size of the next 8 largest military budgets around the world, and consumes 60% of discretionary spending in the US budget. When you make an investment that big, you look for problems to solve, which leads to constant military interventions around the world. How do we justify this to the taxpayer? With an ambiguous expression you may have heard before: spreading American values.
That's it, all right. That's the American idea. We give our best, each of us. We get back the best that everybody has to offer. That's freedom and democracy.
Approximately 15,269 people were executed in the United States and its predecessor colonies between 1608 and 1991. But when it comes to conquests of other countries, like the illegal war in Iraq and Vietnam, we see the number of civilian deaths increase substantially. More than 387,000 civilians were killed in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen in the years following 2001, and several times as many more being killed from the reverberating effects of the war.
I never wanted war to come to the United States. After seeing war, let it happen over there, not here. Don't let it happen to my people, to my mother, because it's a sad situation to see how people have to do and what they have to do to exist.
But another consequence is that this militant attitude makes its way back into the population. To further justify constant military interventionism around the world is the use of racial, nationalistic rhetoric designed to keep the public in a constant state of fear towards anyone outside of the country. This fear of so-called dangerous people who threaten democratic values is constantly reinforced. Fear of communists, fear of terrorists, fear of the unhoused population, and the most recent manifestation of this being Russophobia. A constant flow of fear internally leads to more voting in favor of more funding for law enforcement. But as the police become increasingly militaristic, the people that they're supposed to protect and serve begin to look more and more like non-police, like an enemy.
The story of your town is the story of America. And America, well, America is progress with liberty and democracy and peace.
So what's missing? Part of the puzzle might be that the United States is one of the most economically unequal countries in the world. The point of having a free country with economic freedom is that it means there's opportunity for everyone, and that the best and hardest working can rise their way to the top. Yet there's not much evidence the United States provides this. A 2020 study by the World Economic Forum found that social mobility in the United States ranks 27th in the world, just under Lithuania, and only 14th in learning and skill attainment in Pearson's Global Education Index. People in America disagree on the causes of this, and the topic almost always sparks up a raging debate and conversation. The dominant belief is that the free market is somehow amplifying differences within the population and dividing them based on their capabilities. This is a particularly controversial way of thinking, which originates from interpretations of 18th century economist Adam Smith's writing. Many have debated the validity of this interpretation and see it as a distorted perspective of his economic theories.
The well-being of all our people depends on some productive enterprise somewhere. Everybody's welfare can be traced back to manufacturing and industry. Storekeepers, clerks, bank presidents, their livelihood depends on the steady circulation of industrial payroll dollars.
What is only recently being brought to light in the mainstream is how neoliberal mechanisms of the US economy are making the rich richer while dispossessing the poor. Corporations and political elites believe that certain groups should remain marginalized and have limitations to their freedoms in order to preserve their own power. This doesn't seem too morally exceptional after all. A major problem with the whole idea of American exceptionalism is that only certain demographics are actually able to access the benefits of its claims, and it's typically the wealthy and privileged classes who are benefiting the most from these realities. Coincidentally, they're also the ones who believe in American exceptionalism the most, and defend the concept against anyone who questions it. People who come from ethnic minorities, crippling poverty, or people who have been oppressed by the nation in the past are far less likely to have this experience in America. In a related manner, There's nothing that serves as a wake-up call about the US quite like a reminder of the mass murders that were committed against indigenous peoples from the colonial period through the founding of the United States, continuing into the 20th century.
Well, we're still here, still working at it. We grew so fast in the 19th century we could hardly keep up with ourselves.
Some would say that, aside from a few blips, the United States has been mostly responsible for a lot of good in the world. Let's take a look at this claim. For instance, its role in the Second World War is often overstated, despite the fact that the Soviet Union deserves the majority of the credit for this. It's said to be the 10th hardest working country in the world based on the number of hours the average person works per year. However, that doesn't necessarily mean efficiency, and some have argued that the lack of work-life balance and lack of paid vacation time compared to other countries is hardly a good thing.
Free time, the fruits of our free enterprise system. A day at the shore, a vacation in the country, a holiday overseas.
Not to mention, the United States remains the only country in the developed world without a system of universal health care. Measuring the genius or industriousness of individual Americans would be impossible since it's so subjective, but the media does make it seem like many of the most successful people in the world are American. Is that an argument for American exceptionalism? Possibly. But the country has also benefited from its fair share of fortunate circumstances. America has always been fortunate enough to have a multitude of natural resources and rivers that facilitated trade with the rest of the world. It also had a leg up by coming from one of the biggest world powers at the time and being able to expand while other powers were fighting in wars with each other. America certainly has its merits. It's produced a lot of wealth and technology for the world. American exceptionalism is a belief that floats around the atmosphere of American opinion. It's reiterated passionately, constantly, but without any evidence. And it's a slippery slope to claim that America is somehow special, right about everything, and therefore has the right to control every other nation. Is America exceptional? Yes, but not in the way that many claim it to be. My name is Inhuman Form. Leave a comment and tell me what you think about American exceptionalism, and remember to hit subscribe.